What is a low cost? At its core, the low cost is more than just a car. It's an idea, born from a simple premise. You don't need to be wealthy to enjoy the thrill of building and driving your own sports car. The low-cost movement started with Ron Champion's groundbreaking book, Build Your Own Sports Car, for as little as £250, published in 1996. It was a blueprint for dreamers, a guide for those willing to roll up their sleeves, take on a challenge, and create something uniquely their own. For some, it's a weekend project. For others, it's a way of life. And for a select few, it's the gateway to competitive motorsport. But where did this movement begin? To answer that, we must go back to the man who started it all.
I'm going to just start. I'm just going to say, first off, I want to take a moment to say thank you for granting us the opportunity to have this chat, Ron. It's fabulous.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, yeah. And I've got a few questions which I have typed up in advance. So excuse me, I'm not the world's most gifted interviewer, but I have a few questions I'd like to ask. And, you know, you were kind enough at Melbourne to grant us an interview, and that was fabulous. But I've got some questions about that'll help me tell the story of Ron's life. So do you mind if I ask? Do you mind telling us a bit about your family life? Like as a kid, where did you live? Where did you grow up?
Yeah,
And then,
I grew up. Well, first of all, I was born towards the end of the Second World War.
Yes.
So I was obviously conceived while my father was on leave because he went back in the army, and I didn't see him again. Not that I remember it until I was about 18 months old. I was living with, obviously, my mother until our house got hit by a V2 rocket that good old Aldous sent over. Fortunately, we were in the Anderson air raid shelter. When my mum carried me out, everything was gone. We both moved to my mother's house, my grandmother, where we lived until my father was demobbed at the end of 1945,
right,
and came home. Obviously, came home to no home, a wife, and a child he'd never met before.
Yeah. The next question is: do you mind if I ask about your professional life, your education, and how did you gain employment as in your professional career?
Right. Okay. I, having grown up with my grandmother, I had, in my early years, I had two uncles that weren't much older than me. When my mum got married, she was only 19 years of age.
Yes.
And my uncles were 8 or 9 at the time. So they were more like older brothers than uncles. Both of them heavily into motorcycles. So from the age of being able to pick up a spanner, which I guess must have been about 3 or 4 years of age, I knew my way round spanners. I knew what a 7/16 was, a half inch, etc., etc. So I was the gopher. I was a toddler gopher. In the meantime, of course, I was picking up a lot of knowledge. My father then, with his demob money, was able to buy an Austin 7.
Oh, yes.
That's an interesting connection, which, if you remind me, I'll come back to, because there's a direct link there with Locost. Locost is run by the 750 Motor Club, and its origins are, of course, Austin 7s. So during this time of growing up, I was also helping my dad. The Austin 7 needed constant maintenance. I got two uncles with motorcycles that needed constant maintenance. I think I say constant maintenance. I think part of their pleasure and their hobby was taking them all apart on weekends and putting them back together again.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember an occasion where they weren't working, so therefore we've got to get them fixed quickly. It was a question of, oh, it's Saturday, we're not at work, let's strip one of these down. But anyway, obviously I went to school. I went to school at 4 years of age. Still living with my grandmother because my mum then went back to nursing. My father, having been demobbed, got a job as an auto electrician. The unit he was with during the war was REME, Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. So he came out, having done the whole war, not restoring, but repairing Willis Jeeps, lorries, vehicles, landing craft, you name it. He worked on it electrically. Anyway, he'd got this Austin 7. I learned an awful lot, including being able to drive before I was 7 or 8 with cushions behind me and sitting on them. I lived in a rural environment, so there were lots of farm roads and country roads that I could learn to drive on. So all this, 2 uncles and a dad, heavily into mechanical work, it made me the petrol head that I still am. I went to school, and when I was 11 years of age, the system we have here in the UK, you have junior school, then you have senior school. My parents sent me to a private school. They had the best intentions, but I don't think it did me a lot of good, to be perfectly honest with you, because it wasn't the sort of school that did mechanical work, wood work or anything like that. It was far more academic, and I don't think I benefited really from it. Some of my mates went to local comprehensives, and I was most envious that they did metal work and some mechanical work and woodwork and all those skills I really wanted.
Yes.
But I was obtaining those skills at home, evenings and weekends with my dad and uncles. My parents then had saved up enough money to get a house, and we all moved. Mum, dad, myself, moved to a nice semi-detached house in the same area. All this is happening in Essex. Even the house that was bombed was in Ilford, which is just on the border of Essex, and so the whole childhood was within a 20-mile radius, including the school I went to. During this time, when I got to about 16, I'd got some friends, a couple of years older than me, that were members of the 750 Motor Club.
Yes.
And we decided to build an Austin 7 race car. My dad allowed us to raid his garage, where he had stacks of Austin 7 spares. He needed those spares to keep his one going. But we got a good chassis from that, various other bits and pieces. We bought an engine and gearbox from a scrapyard. And I was the one with the welding skills, which I'd learned from uncles and dads, and I became the chief engineer mechanic, the one that dealt with the oily bits. one of the other chaps was the driver. Another one did all the paperwork and administration. It was a good team.
Wow.
I got as much pleasure from seeing a car that I'd built, or certainly assisted in the building,
Right.
to see that obtain positions in racing as I was if I'd been driving it myself. In fact, more so, I think. Anyway, I left school, got an apprenticeship in with a local garage, and did a 3-year apprenticeship. Left there, and by this time I must have been about left school at 17. Met my wife, bought a car. 2 years later, I was married. We got married in 1966. And no time for race cars or Austin 7
Right.
club then, what with mortgage and new wife, and who was working. She worked for a local bank, Barclays Bank. And we used to go, again, although it was in another county, it was just the other side of the River Thames. We used to go to Brands Hatch regularly to watch the friends I'd made in the 750 Motor Club race. I then had a period of time working for myself and opened up a little garage.
Oh, okay.
I was in my mid-20s then. The usual stuff, servicing, repairs, and looked after a couple of race cars, an MG Midget for a local chap, which did very well, supercharged, meant it went up to the next class, but it was still beating people in the next class. I can't remember what the classes were, but I'd got this bug going through me of always had to have oily hands and dirty fingernails. My wife was very supportive in all this, particularly in the early years of marriage, when not only was I working on cars during the week, but I'd have friends coming round at weekends. Ron, can you fix this? Can you? I think the head gasket's gone. Can you have this sort of stuff? And for years and years of married life, she had a garden or drive. We're fortunate we had lots of space. A drive full of cars in various states of disrepair. During this time, I was also building up a small car collection. So not only friends' cars, but my own cars. And I had some very exotic machinery, but back in the 60s and early 70s, stuff that's expensive and exotic now you could buy in scrapyards. I had a couple of E-type Jaguars, not at the same time.
Really?
And I got those. And if I say restore them, that wasn't the case, but made them roadworthy.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. It wasn't all spit and polish like Concours cars are nowadays. If you could get it through the then MOT, you drove it. You weren't worried about the odd patch of flaking paint or torn leather seats. If it went, you drove it. So yeah, a couple of E-types, a Gilburn. I think I owned all the MGs. I had an MGTC, then I went to an MGA, then an MGB, then an MGC, which was a wonderful car. By this time, my daughter was born. Although I convinced my wife that the MGC GT was big enough for a carry cot on the back seat, she thought otherwise. So the next car was an Alfa Romeo 2-litre GTV, the early models, a nice roundy shaped one, which did have plenty of room. People recently have asked me what was the best car, my favourite car that I've ever owned, and it was that Alpha.
Yeah.
When I bought it, it was little more than beer money, or
Yeah.
weekends beer money. It had run into the back of something. It was still drivable, but the radiator was leaking because of the accident. The headlights were bust. The bonnet had a crease in it. The front grille and bumper was dented beyond repair.
Mm-hmm.
But I got it home, straightened it all out, put a new radiator in, and wasn't too fussed about the paint. There was several different colours, but
Mm-hmm.
drove that for a couple of years until, unfortunately, a drunk driver, and it wasn't me, the drunk driver, drunk driver pulled out of a forecourt in the middle of the night without any lights on, and I T-boned him, and that wrote off the Alpha. I never did have another one, because by this time they were going up in price. So, you look at the price of 1970s Alphas now, and it's silly money.
Yeah.
So then we had another child, a son, James, who you know about.
Yeah.
By the time James got to 15 years of age, I started him off on motorbikes when he was 5 years old, and the motorbikes got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then he started thinking about cars and said, "Dad, another 18 months, I'm going to be 17. I want a car." Yeah, okay, son. What sort of car do you want? Well, kit cars aren't like they are now.
Yeah.
You had Caterham. I think Dutton, Dutton, was around in those days.
Yeah. Tim Dutton.
But there wasn't these dozens and dozens of Seven clones.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about Sevens, apart from Lotus Sevens, apart from the ones I'd seen at race meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a couple of car shows with my son and had a look at these cars and realised very, very quickly that they were just a bunch of tubes welded together and clad in aluminium.
Yes.
So, and looking at the mechanics, the engines were available engines, in the main Ford engines. The axles were available. And when I say available, my price range, local scrapyard. So I said to James, look, I'll make you one of these. It'll be ready by the time you're 17. You'll be able to drive it when you're 17 and got your license. And his reaction was, "Oh, no, Dad, I want a real one." I said, "Look, son, can't afford a real one.
Yeah.
But I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference."
Yeah.
So we set to, with him helping. I've got to say that James had inherited my enthusiasm for all things mechanical, particularly
Lovely.
from the age of 5, having his own motorcycle. And within a year or two, he was able to strip his motorbike engines down and rebuild them. Weekends with all his young pals, they used to come round. I need to point out, we live in a rural environment in a village. He'd got friends several miles away in other villages, but they could all communicate or all visit each other by going across the fields.
Yes.
Didn't have to go on the public highway, therefore quite legal to ride his motorcycle over. Well, again, weekends, the back garden used to be full of his mates with their motorbikes. "Oh, Mr. Champion, can you weld this up? This is broken off. Can you do?" And James would be beavering away and I'd be welding away. And it used to be like the pits at a motorcycle race meeting. Anyway, in due course, the Locost, as it came to be called, was finished. Now, what made this? There's several elements that brought this together. First of all, being born when my father had an Austin 7 and had to do his own repairs. Having two uncles that did their own repairs on motorcycles, which then transitioned into motor cars. So I had a pretty good grounding. But James also had the same grounding as me, because by the time he was 7 or 8, he could MIG weld. By the time,
Really?
oh yeah, he could MIG weld, gas weld, arc weld. He did it all for
Wow.
his design technology A-level at school.
Hmm.
He built from scratch an electric powered vehicle, which he demonstrated around the school playground and got a very good grading in his A-levels for it. So he's got the same
He's got the right stuff.
same enthusiasm as me. So first of all, I had that grounding. That helped. Secondly, I was involved with the 750 Motor Club. That helped. But the biggest help of all was only 2 miles away was the local scrapyard, which before
Yes.
health and safety, which has changed, it is still there, but totally changed. When
Yeah.
it was health and safety, you could climb up these cars, 2
Hmm.
or 3 cars high, and get the bits off you wanted for next to nothing,
Yeah,
and
I know.
bring them home.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. And
Yeah.
also, where I live was only 3 miles from one of the largest steelworks in the UK, which was Corby
Yeah.
Steelworks. And again, before health and safety, I could go up there and say, look, can I have a look through your skip? I want
Yeah.
a few bits of steel. And I'd get in the skip. None of this would be allowed now.
Yeah.
No hard hats,
No.
no big boots, no
Yeah.
high-vis jackets. You just got in the skip and chucked out the stuff that you wanted and brought it home.
Hmm.
All these elements coming together was how the low cost was able to come about. I think if I'd lived in a city away from all these cheap materials, if I'd lived in a city where my father didn't have space to build Austin restore Austin Sevens, and I hadn't got uncles with the space to restore and repair motorcycles, I don't think I would have had this knowledge. Anyway, the car was duly finished. During the last 6 months, I'd taken it into my place of employment then, which was Oundle School.
Yes.
I say place of employment, I still had my small garage going, but I was approached by the school and said, could you come in and give some instruction to the REME cadet force?
Oh, okay.
We have a very, very large cadet force in the school, and Army, Navy and Air Force, well, of course, saying REME, my father's connection, I readily agreed. This is a non-paid job, by the way, and I went in and taught the lads. It was just 1 day a week at the start, but taught the lads how to weld. They'd got a couple of ex-Army, well, they were still Army. The Army had given them to the Cadet Force Land Rovers, which we took apart and rebuilt, and I explained the workings. We even had a ferret armoured car, which all the lads, and by this time, I was there at this period when they changed to co-ed. We were starting to have girls in the school as well. So I taught all the boys and girl cadets how to drive this ferret armoured car, which was wonderful fun. The school then approached me and asked me if I'd like to go full-time and become a full-time member of staff.
Well, that was leading to my next question is, where did the idea of actually writing the book come from? And I sense it comes from some of the classmates that you had.
Yeah. Well, during the time I'd taken the car back to the school, And really that was for the final finishing, spraying and fitting the seats and what have you. My colleagues there, the other teachers there, they said, look, Ron, there's a book in this, you know. And I said, well, no, I can't write a book.
Yeah.
As I said to you earlier, Jim, give me spanners, give me welding kit, and I can do it. When it comes to academic stuff, I'm not a lot of good, to be perfectly honest with you. And they said, no, you should do. In the meantime, these REMA cadets had seen this, what came to be called Locost, but it wasn't then. I just said it as a replica of a Lotus 7, built it myself.
Yeah.
They said, can we build one? And I said, well, you know, it's not up to me. It's up to your parents who'd have to fund it. And it's up to the school whether they want to dedicate the space and the time to you building it. Well, these lads and lasses, we had 2 girls build Locosts, obviously went home and spoke to parents and came back. And my dad said, yes, I can. He's going to speak to the headmaster about this. So the headmaster called me up to his office and said, look, Ron, I've got half a dozen pupils here whose parents are very supportive of this build your own car idea of yours. Would you be prepared to undertake it alongside your other commitments in the school? And I said, well, yeah, no problem at all. Again, the workings of the school are such as they have periods. It's a boarding school, so they have periods, non-academic, non-lessons, where they're not allowed to hang about on the street corner. They're not allowed to skive off. They've got to be doing something. It can be anything as long as it's constructive. And by that, I mean, it could be sport, it could be rowing, it could be sailing, it could be target shooting, it could be music. These youngsters chose to do engineering, particularly car engineering. So we started up this little section, building Locosts. I'd taken one of my colleagues' advice and sent off a letter to Haynes Publishing and said, I've built this car for my son. Here's some photographs. Here's a synopsis and some drawings. Well, within days, I'd heard back from Haynes, and they said, "Oh, this is most exciting. We would like to go with this. Send us some more material. We'll send you a contract." And well, the rest is history.
Yeah.
The rest is history. During my time at the school, we actually produced, in a 10-year period, we actually produced 42 low-cost cars.
I'm happy for you, number one, but that's impressive. I mean,
Yeah.
very impressive.
They 6 of the lads. I'm getting a bit lost here. 6. I had a visit from someone in the 750 Motor Club who'd heard about this because we were getting lots of national publicity in newspapers and TV. And this chap came along. His name was Mike Todd. Lovely chap. Very, very nice chap.
I've been in touch with him, and we're going to do an interview with him.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, wish him well from me, won't you?
Yeah.
And said, yeah, this is the sort of thing we'd be very interested in. And can you get some cars ready for a race? I think we'll call it, I don't know if they did, but I did, called it a demonstration race.
Yes.
I had 6 lads whose cars were nearly finished. And I said, look, with a bit of modification, we put roll cages and various safety features. we can have these as race cars. The parents were already involved, or had been when they were younger, in motor racing.
Yes.
Totally supportive, totally supportive. Parents were prepared to trailer cars to race meetings, etc. So the first grid of 750 Motor Club, Locost Racing, had 6 cars and 6 pupils from the school driving, and certainly one other home-built car, no connection with the school, and I think there might have been 2. I know that there was definitely one. I think the 8th one, either he hadn't quite finished it, or I can't remember that. My memory's not that good. Anyway, we did this race, 750 Club, all for it. And as far as motor racing is concerned, it's just gone from strength to strength to strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I got just a couple more questions.
Go for it.
I wanted to say about building or writing the book. What was the most challenging part of writing the book? Because you mentioned that you're not a writer, you're not a typer on a computer, but you did mention that your wife, Mary, was very cooperative in letting you leave all of your papers about the house. Who did you call upon to help you write the book?
No, I did the book myself totally.
Okay.
Mary put up with all the papers around the house and stacks of photographs. But consider it this way, Jim. I had all the drawings. I had all the photographs. And during this time, I was also teaching young people. And I have the ability to communicate information and, more importantly, instructions to young people and older people who have never done something before. I learnt dealing with young people, including my young son's friends when they came round to fix their motorcycles. You don't say to someone that's never held a screwdriver, "Oh, go and get me a Phillips screwdriver," because they'll come back 5 minutes later and say, "Who's Philip?
Yeah.
I can't find him." No, that's the one that's this shape. So I never, any requests I made or anything I wanted them to do, I would say, "Go and get me a screwdriver. It's got like a cross on the end."
Yes.
Or you'll see several screwdrivers. I want the one with the flat end. So I had this ability. I still do it, unfortunately, because I can say this to people our age, Jim. "Oh, I've got one in the garage. It's the one with the," and they look at me as if, "I know that. You don't have to tell me that." So with the if you open up a copy of the book, it's just, I'd like to think it's like I'm talking to you. How you do it?
Well, that's what I found, because I do have a copy of the book, of course, because in my own build experience, I of course bought your book thinking that, gosh, maybe I could go ahead and build it. But in truth, and this was leading up to my next question, is I held back from building a low cost, and I built a low cost kit for my 7. But that leads me to my question. For someone who is starting out with no prior experience, what would you say is the most important first step in beginning a car building project?
The first step, read the book thoroughly. Pick a small component. That small component might be the 4 trailing links that go from the chassis to the axle. They're very easy to make. They're round tube. The instructions and drawings are all there. Make those. When you've made those, then make the panhard rod, which is exactly the same construction process, but a bit longer. And then attack every component one at a time.
Right.
Don't look at it as a whole. You must never look at it as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if you look at it as a whole, it's daunting.
Yep.
Break it down into component parts. Now, if you break it down into component parts,
Mm-hmm.
you will eventually get there and have built the whole car and develop skills along the way.
Absolutely.
Hi guys, that time of year again. Time to look forward to enjoying the company of family and friends over Christmas. Time to look back on 2024 and look forward to 2025. 2024 has been a good year for me, mainly because back in August I had a chance to buy this beast. It's Noddy, a low cost that I built back in the early days of low cost, 96, 97, on the road June 97. 28 years ago I was in my garage here, welding bits on the chassis and trying to figure out where the hell to put the front wishbone mounting brackets. Anyway, that's history, long gone. And now I've got the car back and I'm as excited now about low cost as I was 28 years ago.
Derek Manders, thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
Took a
kidding.
while, but we got there.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm so happy.
Yeah,
Well, part of what we're doing right now is compiling a sort of a biography on Ron Champion. And if anybody knows the story well, I know it's you because you've become good friends over the years.
that's
and
correct.
And you were one of the original low-cost builders. I'm
That's it.
keen to find out that because there's an ethos that persists even now, these many years later, about low cost. And I'm just so keen to develop the story. Like, how did it start for you?
Started for me, I was watching the local television news program one evening, and there was I just caught the tail end of a feature about a chap that had written a book which was about to be published on how to build a Lotus 7 type car. He worked, he was a teacher in school, and the pupils had built some, and there was pictures of these lads nipping around in cars, and I thought, oh, I'll have some of that. So, but there was no mention of who was publishing the book or anything like that. So I can't remember now because it was 30 years ago how I did it, but I did a bit of detective work and found out it was going to be a Haynes book, which was due to be published about a month after that article appeared on the television. So I got in touch with Haynes and I got 2 copies on order to be delivered as soon as they were published. One was going to be for me and one was for a work colleague, Alan Horton. He was heavily into Ford Capris. He had a nice selection of Ford Capris, and he just fancied a change. So he said, yeah, we're up for it. We'll do one apiece. So that was it. We decided to do it. So the book was published in October 96. We got the books within a day or two of them being published. And on the 5th of November 97, I stayed behind at work and I cut all the chassis sections up that from the 25mm box section that we'd already bought. And that was it. It started from there. It was much better doing that than watching fireworks. So I was making sparks on the bandsaw at work.
Right.
So it was very handy working where I did. It was an engineering company, so we were sort of manufacturing heat exchangers basically. So we got all the facilities, and an added bonus was Alan Horton. He was the supervisor of the sheet metal section, so he knew what was what.
Well,
He was
so
a very, very handy bloke to have on board. Alan was a great
wow,
help to me. So,
lovely. How long did it take you to build?
I started the 5th of November 96, and I was on the road for 12th of June 97.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it wasn't painted when I got it on the road. It looked a bit rough and grubby when I first got it on the road, but I wanted to get it on the road, and I could sort of tweak and fine tune things before I put the paint, etc. on.
Right.
So I did.
And
The chassis was handy, so I got the chassis built, and I took it into work. And Gary, one of the other lads there, we took it into work. I think it was early into January. I think we took it into work when there was nobody else there, and snuck it into the shot blaster, and he shot blasted it for me, and then we sort of sneaked it round to the paint bay and put some red oxide primer on it, and then borrowed the works truck and I brought it home all in one piece. So it was very handy. If I hadn't have worked where I did, it would have been a different kettle of fish.
right.
So,
And when you built it, you built it exactly according to the book, or did you take a little bit of?
The book doesn't give you an exact way of doing it. Well, not the way I read it. It gives you a rough guide.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to, if you're building it from the book, you've got to do a bit of thinking and head scratching yourself, which was all part of the fun.
Yeah.
You know, so it is basically a book car. Everything
Lovely.
is mine was based on a Mark II Escort, which the book is based on a Mark II Escort, and I use as much
That
of the
was my
Escort
question.
as I could. Yeah. So,
I'm interested too. I mean, in how the story developed, not only for you, but obviously for your friend, because I've seen some photos, early photos of a group of low cost builders who got together. And how did that sort of evolve?
well, we had. I started a local owners club. I think, as far as I'm aware, we were the first group of low cost owners to get together and form a club. I've not heard of any before us. So there was, I think we had 7 or 8 of us all together in the end. You know, I'm still in touch with a couple of them because you're probably aware I sold my car in 2013 and regretted it, and I just had the chance to buy it back early this year, in August this year. So I bought it back, and now I've appeared back on the well, not back on, but on the Facebook pages. Folks have got in touch with me from way back, so it's quite good from that respect.
That's fabulous. And do you mind if I ask? I mean, I know that I built mine. It's a low cost kit, but I built mine from a kit. And when I drive around, people will come up and they'll say, "What's that?" And do you mind if I ask, when you first came out with that? I mean, clearly it's not a Lotus. It's not. You know. How did people react to the low cost?
Well, folks would say to me, "What kit's that? You know, where did you get the kit?" It's not a kit. I made it. The only thing I didn't make was the nose cone and the rear wings. They were Caterham. I had to buy them from Caterham because there was nowhere else. Nowadays, you can buy, there's loads of companies making bits and pieces, but there wasn't in my day. In fact, I'd never seen a low cost until I got mine built. So I didn't have anything to look at or to get ideas from. It was very much a suck it and see exercise.
And getting back to sort of your connection to the book and to Ron Champion, how did you come into meeting Ron?
I got my car on the road on the 12th of June 97, and then there was the Newark Kit Car Show, which was only about 15 miles or so from where I live. So I went up there. and there was a little area set aside for low costs. But we didn't need a very big area because there was only one there, and that was mine. And I was on there, and Ron had a stall in one of the halls promoting the book.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd got a couple of cars there that were the pupils at the school had built. And he came over and we had a good old chat. And from that moment on, we've been friends. We've sort of hit it off, and it's been good. You can't beat getting to know the man that wrote the book.
No kidding.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some fun together.
Yeah, and over the years, I mean, as the story has evolved with low cost, I mean, clearly it has turned. It's a phenomenon unto itself. How it has grown.
It has, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. How, as the fly on the wall, as one of the original builders, how did you perceive how it evolved?
You wouldn't think it was going to take off like it did.
Yeah.
In fact, I've been off the scene since 2013, since I sold my car, and now I'm back on it again. I think low cost now is as popular as it was way back in the early days, even more so because there's that many companies about now that's making their own version of the low cost.
Sure.
And excuse me. Making their own version of the low cost and selling kits, and it's so much easier for people now to build one.
Yeah,
I mean, it was,
and the technical resources. Excuse me for jumping in.
Yeah.
And, I know when I was building mine way back in the early 2000s, it's a low cost kit, but my instruction manual was like about 5 or 6 pages deep, so I had to do a lot of digging around. And one of the resources I relied on heavily was the Low Cost Builders UK site. It is phenomenal.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I didn't have anything like that. There was absolutely nowhere for Alan and myself to go for information.
Yeah,
absolutely nowhere. It was, we just the only information we got was in the book. One of the proudest moments for Alan and myself was a couple of years after we'd got the cars built. We was with Ron one day, and he said, he says, "You two lads, you're not low-cost builders, you're low-cost pioneers."
Boy, so true.
That was really, really made our day, that did. Yeah. For a comment like that to come from the main man.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. It's so true, though, too. I mean, in doing my research for, this work that I'm doing right now, trying to find some original builders is difficult.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, well, a lot of the original builders are the same age as me, well into the 70s, it's we're all getting along in the tooth.
Well, there's that.
I'm well the wrong side of 70 now, unfortunately, but
yeah, well, I think that the phenomenon is, and you just said it yourself, you were so in love and enamored by your car that even though you did sell it, you regretted it the moment you did, and you had the opportunity to buy it back, which is it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the best bit is I bought it back for exactly the same price as I sold it for.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And the added bonus, it was delivered back from Kent to me for nothing. So
that's great.
That was brilliant. Yeah. I had 11 years away from it, and I spent that playing about with motorbikes, which was my first love. And now I've thinned all those out, and I'm back with Noddy, the low cost. So
I can't say how happy I am to have had the opportunity to have this chat. I mean, we've been chatting off and on, and you've given me some video from I believe it was Newark.
That's right. It was
and you were again the sole presenter at Newark.
Yeah. I was a bit disappointed with the show at Newark. Actually, it wasn't a patch on what it used to be in the olden days.
Yeah.
But sign of the times, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm hopefully going to try and get together a low cost in this area sometime next year. I've got a plan in my head. So whether it comes off or not, I don't know. I'm going to set aside a date and I've got a venue lined up and just have a low-cost driving day.
Oh, that would be
So,
awesome.
yeah.
I wish I was. I wish I wasn't on the other side of the ocean. I'd love to be there.
Yeah, just come over for a holiday.
Well, I'm ready.
Yeah, okay.
All
Lovely,
right.
Jim. Nice to chat to you eventually.
Always is. Always is. Okay, we'll talk to you
Okay,
real soon.
yeah.
Cheers.
Today we're going to be mainly talking about the 750 motor racing series, a little bit about Locost, a little bit about Westfield, because we've actually got a champion with us today, and that's Mike. Say hello, Mike.
Hi, John. Nice to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about your background, because you used to race at Westfield, I believe, in the Locost Championship, but you've got a lot to come on to talk to about the Locost Championship, because you're also quite heavily involved in that, weren't you?
Yeah, that's true. Back in the early 90s, I built a Westfield to race in the Kit Car Championship, which was before Locost was ever thought about. And I raced it from 92 to 2000. And I won the championship 3 times in 4 years.
Wow.
In
Wow.
Different classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I stopped racing because I changed jobs, and it was about this time that low cost sort of came on the horizon.
Yeah.
As well as being kit car champion, we in the 750 Motor Club, we had a thing called Formula Officials. So it's basically like a driver's rep, and they would meet every month just to thrash out any changes that needed to be made or whatever. And one night at this meeting, Keith Messer, who was the technical guru of 750 Motor Club, said, I've come across this book about building yourself a sports car for
I can imagine
£250.
I can imagine which one you're talking about. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And he said the problem with 750 is it's gone away from this idea of people designing and making their own cars.
yeah, almost. Yeah, that can become sort of
what it used to be.
Yeah, can become checkbook racing. Whoever's got the most money is going to win, type thing. Yeah,
exactly. So he said we need to get hold of, make contact with the publishers to get in touch with the author. And I put my hand in my pocket and said,
I know
phone out. Yeah, I pulled my phone out and I said, "Oh, do you want his number?" Well, have you got that? I said, "Well, as well as being a teacher, I'm chief examiner for GCSE motor vehicle studies, and I do the in-service training for the teachers all over the country."
Yeah. Ron was a teacher as well. Ron Champion was a teacher as well, wasn't he?
That's right. At the time, he was teaching at Oundle private school, or public school, and I put this meeting on in London, and this guy turned up, and I thought he looks a bit familiar, and I got him to fill his name in on the attendance sheet, and there it was, Ron Champion, and I said, "Are you the Ron Champion that wrote the book about building a car?" He looks at me and he said, "Yeah." "Are you the Mike Top that won the kit car championship last year?" "Yeah." And then I said, "I tell you what, let's start this meeting. Let's get through it, clear all the teachers out of the way, and we can sit down over a coffee this afternoon and sort out
things out." Yeah. So this is basically how Locost got involved in the 750 championship.
Racing start. It was. Yeah. And then, as I say, at this race tech committee meeting, I gave the phone number to Keith. He phoned Ron.
Yeah.
And we set up a meeting for the three of us, Ron, myself, and Keith. And we sat down one night and we thrashed out the ideas of regulations, trying to keep it as close to the book as possible, but also taking into account anything that needed to be changed, for safety and so forth for racing.
Yeah. Back in the day, what engines were they using? I would imagine Ford.
It was always the Ford Crossflow with 1300 cc.
Yeah.
And that's what the race series is still using to this day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because it's got a very big following now as well, isn't it?
It has, yes. I mean, for the first 5 or 6 years, I acted as former official for it. So I had a very close liaison with all the drivers and, sorting out rules, regulations. And like the guys at the 750 directors sort of said, basically, it's your baby. You keep an eye on it. And you know what you're doing because you're Westfield Racing. And it was fantastic in the early days. It was a fantastic championship to be racing in. Everybody was really friendly. If anybody got a little bit a bit overzealous on the track, I'd go over and have a quiet word with them afterwards.
A friendly word. None of this penalties and pit stops and God that you get in Formula One just got so boring.
That's right. Yeah.
Again, I mean, Formula One, whoever's got the most money wins, is what I said before. But when you look at somebody, because the 750 series is now being televised, there's live streams you can look at as well. And when you look at the race, it is so close. It's I'm sure there's spins and people not, bashing into each other and this kind of thing. But it's really exciting to watch. Really exciting.
Yeah, it certainly is. It got so popular after a few years that they were actually running 3 grids. So,
okay.
So you would do 2 out of the 3, and then that would give you a full grid for a final.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This is the other thing. The amount of people that are entered into it as well. I mean, some of the race series you get a few, but the low cost you get loads of people. Really exciting.
You do. Yeah. I mean, it got so popular that 750 introduced a variation of it with putting Mazda engines into the low cost chassis, and they called it Mazda 7, which had a bit more performance than the 1300 Crossflow. And that drew a few of the people away.
Yeah. I know in some of the races as well, it's like the MK sports cars. They're now entering their Cup 200s, but that's a completely different class, I would imagine, to the original.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
That's kind of like where it all came from. But it's absolutely brilliant that you obviously got involved quite a lot with Ron and getting it into the 750 championship.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I went to Handel School a couple of times, in my capacity as chief examiner, to look at some of the students' work and so forth. And when you walked into his workshop, which was it was a very nice big industrial unit, basically. It just looked like you were walking into a race car factory,
So you've stopped racing now. Have you any thoughts of building another Westfield or
no? Well, not really, because having done it once, got the T-shirt, got the trophies.
Well, you won the championship 3 times.
Yeah, I've done it. But interestingly, when I retired from work, because after I finished teaching, after running my own race business for 5 years and then selling it, I ended up getting headhunted and became general manager of a GT team.
Okay.
Racing in British GT and blank pan in Europe, as well as Formula Renault. So I went from being a school teacher to like engineer, team manager, and then, as I say, eventually general manager until I retired. So so I don't have the time and space to build a low cost or a Westfield or anything like that. The garage I built the Westfield in is now full of lathe and milling machine and so forth. After I'd finished racing, in the early days of low cost, when 1 or 2 companies were starting to build the chassis commercially, there was a kit car racer friend of mine, Ian Gray, who started building low cost frames under the name Stuart Taylor Motorsport.
I know the name, and I know the company.
And I think he did probably the first Loco blade. So it's a low cost with a 5-blade engine.
That's the one I'm thinking of. With the CBR blade engine. Yeah.
And he said to me, if I enter a car at Silverstone at the Peterborough Motor Club race meeting, will you race it for me? Yeah, all right then. Well, I've never driven it before.
Yeah. Have you never driven bikes? Never driven bike engines or no.
So it was a case of getting the car just before qualifying and there was a bit of a groan of the rubber bushes because they seemed a bit tight.
Yeah.
And I said, we're going to have to slacken these off a bit before the race. Anyway, go out, blah, blah, blah. And I'm racing against, there's a couple of Mallet, you know, the Mallet Clubman cars, front engined, slick tyres. I'm on road tyres, although soft road tyres. There's like Triumph 2000 TR6 I think it was, on slicks, and there's a real mix match of things. And I don't know, I qualified mid-grid sort of thing. And I can remember saying to him, what are we going to do about starting here? What's the maximum revs on this? And he said, I don't know, 12, 13, something like that. And I thought, oh, okay. With the Westfield, it was like 8,000 max, and I'd 6,000, I'd let the clutch out.
Yeah.
Okay, so working that through, we go, let's get it to about 9.5 and let the clutch out.
And then launch it, yeah.
And I could not get my breath. I went, this was from the old pit start line, you know, at Silverstone, up against the wall, and I'm sort of going past these cars as if they're standing still. And I'm thinking, and it's just boom, 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 you know, through the gears.
Yeah, the gear changes, constant. Yeah.
And anyway, it gets about part way through the race, and I overcook it and I spin. So I get going again, and I got to get past the more cars, and I think I ended up the first road tired car in the race, and all we got was a blade, you know, 5-blade engine. It was just it didn't convince me to go bike engine car racing. I didn't particularly like it. But it was a very interesting experience.
Should we call that a wrap? Call that a wrap?
Yeah. If you're happy with what we've covered.
Yeah, brilliant. Give a wave to Ron Champion, who I know will be watching this as well. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Ron. Long time no see. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, hopefully catch up soon. Lotus 001, we're now with Matt Reed, who I think you've probably heard me saying to Ron, you are the current custodian.
Custodian is exactly the right word, John.
Yeah,
exactly. Right word. I agree.
So when did you get this car? It was about 3-4 years ago, I think.
2 years at the end of January, so 2.5 years ago now.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've fully rebuilt it.
Well, I mean, to be fair to Ron, it was so well built in the first place. I think it's probably more a refurbishment and get things running again. So the car, engineering-wise, body-wise, was phenomenal. The fact that 27 years it's had in the shed, Ron very kindly ran the engine quite regularly. So again, that helped. That helps a lot. So for me, I've tried to just carry things on. So it's a refresh. A lot of electrics, a lot of the
Premier wiring did your electrics.
Premier wiring.
I saw Premier wiring. I saw you marking up the loom and sending it off, and then the guys up there just put one together. It was pretty much plug and play, wasn't it?
They were absolutely brilliant. To be fair, absolutely phenomenal. And to be fair, took every switch, laid it all out on the board, and handed me back a loom. So now the car, everything runs off the Premier wiring loom. Literally every cable was taken out. It's an entire Premier wiring loom throughout. And actually, for future proofing, I don't think we ever will, but if we want to go and put heater and matrix,
it's there.
Wiring's all there, neatly tucked away, fuses.
Heated seats.
Oh yeah, heated steering wheel. John, got to get with the times.
Right, this is the UK, of course. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I think the biggest thing probably was paintwork, because the primer structure failed away over time. So all the green, it's quite nice actually, because The green is
That's the
is all
original
fresh.
green as well, isn't it?
Well, it's the original green, so kindly Ron's got a phenomenal memory.
Well,
so
depth of knowledge.
of knowledge and a phenomenal memory as well for what happened in the early 90s.
Because it was a mix of paints as well, wasn't it? It was
two-thirds of a can of. I asked Ron, so I said, "What colour is it?" Because I need to paint it again. I didn't want to just turn up and get it micro, measured.
Yeah.
Which is what I did do in the end.
Yeah.
But it was 2/3 of a can of British Racing green and a third of a can of Cortina yellow.
I was going to say
yellow.
it's a green and yellow mix, but the yellow doesn't really. Well, it's obviously green. It comes across as green, but that little yellow tinge to it as well.
Yeah, that little yellow too. So it's not a British Racing green colour. But the yellow parts on the car are as Ron painted them. So the little nick in the rear wheel arch with a little bit of filler in it. Part of me wants to make it all immaculate.
But
part of it is.
Was that Ron?
It wasn't me. But no comment. It could have been. But I think part of it is there are some parts. The exhaust is a really good example where it just the chrome had perished with time. I think it was a motorbike exhaust at the time.
Yeah.
But again, following the spirit, that's actually Caterham HPC exhaust. I don't care what it was.
No,
it was on Facebook Marketplace. And I swapped it for a nice bottle of red.
Wow.
So the days of going to scrapyards getting bits. Obviously, you can't get near them these days.
No,
rightfully
exactly.
So
Yeah.
But this, I think, the seat belts have come off Facebook Marketplace. The exhausts of a chat forum, as I say, swap for a bottle of wine.
It's back to the original ethos, though, of a low cost.
Yeah, it's just how it works in this generation. Absolutely, it's still using the same principles. The mirror is one I found in the box that Ron gave me, so I glued that on Thursday. It's you can't see anything else; it just shakes like mad. But, I think every part
to see what's behind you, though, do you?
But it does show you how well things were made, because if I haven't put, I put a couple of light bulbs in the illuminations on some of the dials, but every other bulb is the ones that were in the car in the 90s.
Wow!
So all of every single instrument item now with the Premier wiring loom in it works. Apart from the fuel gauge. I'm getting there.
Don't need that.
Well, just put a stick in it, it's okay. But no, every gauge is the same, apart from we swapped the ammeter out for a voltmeter, as I did an alternator exchange for the dyno, which kind of made sense with the new alternator in it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything is, even the map reading light has run around a scrapyard, is it, with the bulb in it.
When Ron here built it. Absolutely brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
And you, John, good to see you as well.
Yeah, good to see you. Great to see your car. This was the car we were coming to see.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's very kind of you. And I think it's great. It's like, custodian is a great word for it. This is Ron's history, Ron's car.
Exactly.
We're just the current overseers of care for it. That's the way it works.
You're doing a good job.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So,
thank you, John.
Keep looking after it.
one of the thoughts that came to me is that as we proceed into the documentary, we want to look back, if you will, on your life and what the legacy of the low cost is. Now, I can say what I think, and the low cost community has become huge, and it's all because of you.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, if I hadn't written the book, it would never have happened, would it?
It absolutely would never have happened. But I'm wondering, if you don't mind, from your perspective, where do you see where do you see the low cost movement going forward into the future?
Well, I think there's a little bit of change, certainly over here in this country. I can't speak for other countries, but people are starting to get into motor vehicle do-it-yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
It all went very, very quiet for a lot of reasons, such as they weren't teaching hand skills in schools. They stopped that years ago. And the ease of which new drivers, young people, anyone can now get a brand new car over here very cheaply with a
Yes.
leasing program. If you drive around residential areas now, on everyone's drive and in their garage, if the door's open, there are new cars or newish cars, very few over 2 years old.
Yeah.
When the book came out, or when I did the book, if you drove around the same estates, weekends, there'd be chaps outside with their cars on ramps,
Mm-hmm.
laying underneath with spanners and doing their own jobs. Well, people just don't do that. But it's starting to come back again.
It truly is, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the growth build your own car things over here is cycle cars. Have you heard of cycle cars?
It is a phenomenon that's huge. And I think it touches on exactly what you said. It's affordability and availability of parts. People can
Yeah.
get into it and they can get started with or without a lot of technical background, and they can make something that goes.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I might become involved, not necessarily in a physical way, but in an advisory way, because my nephew, who is a school headmaster,
Mm-hmm.
has 2 children that want to build something, and he spoke to me and said, "What's your suggestion, Ron?" He was thinking about a go-kart of
Mm-hmm.
some sort, and I said, "Well, look, if we're going to do that, have a look at these sites on cycle cars." Well, he's
Mm-hmm.
come back to me and said, "Well, look, it seems fantastic, Ron. Um, I've shown it to the children, and they'd love to build something like this." And I'm talking about his own children, not the children in
Yes.
his school.
Yeah.
And we've started collecting bits.
Oh, lovely.
I've got tools and equipment. Physically, I'm not able to do an awful lot now,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly got a wealth of experience and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of advice. So, with loan of tools, equipment, and me overseeing the project, we're
Mm-hmm.
hoping in the new year to start building this cycle car. Naturally, me being me, I'll keep a photographic record of everything
Yes.
and write everything down that we do.
Yeah.
But that's the next project. But I think it's all come back. I think that low cost building is coming back, particularly on the racing front.
Mm-hmm.
I went to kit car shows 4 or 5 years ago, and there may have been a dozen low costs. Recently, there's people pulling them out of the garages and dusting them off again and getting them going and bringing their low costs out again. I think
Yes.
there's a big change.
Yes, I think you're quite right. I mean, I think that if you look back at history, through history, you can see that, many years ago, just as you mentioned, you could go through the junkyards and you can pull from the bins all the parts you wanted because they were literally laying around. You could find a donor vehicle. It's not as easy to do now, but there still are, modern cars that can be used, and they are using them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that's the other thing, of course. That there are no scrap yards as we used to have in the old days with piles and piles of old cars.
Yeah.
You couldn't go around salvaging bits of them and taking them home now. That's all finished, and I think that also contributed to the demise of car building.
Yeah.
But I think cycle cars are certainly one of the ways to go. Another thing that's very interesting over here, people take a fairly modern car, perhaps 10 or even 15 years old, and turn it into something called a rat rod. Have you heard of? Do you get those in America?
It's
Canada?
very big. Where I live, it's very, very big. And excuse me for saying so. I know some people that build these things, and it's huge. One thing about North American culture, we're a lot more about show than we are about go.
Yeah.
But it is a phenomenon that's big. I mean, you mentioned the cycle carts, and to me, when I think of the cycle carts, I also think it's an analog, if you will, to the book that you wrote about build your own buggy, which is fabulous.
Yeah. I don't think I've got a cycle car book in me, but
there's still time.
You never know. Yeah. You never know. If I video the build, I might send it over to you, and you can put it on YouTube or something.
I would be honored, just absolutely honored to do that. It'll be great.
Yeah. Well, now you've said that, I will video it from start to finish.
Well, you mentioned it.
I reckon if we start in the new year, with a bit of luck, we should have it ready for the summer. So it's probably a 6 or 7 month project.
Yeah.
What we've got to decide on, and I'm spending Christmas Day with this family, so it'll be a topic for discussion with the children. What we've got to decide on is what we're going to replicate, because again, I can only speak for this country, but over here they replicate them on pre-war race cars like Bugattis and DRAs and that sort of thing. Is that what they do over there?
Very much so, yeah.
Oh, right, great.
Yeah.
So this video would be of interest over there as well, then.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It'd be topical, and I assure you that with your name attached to it, it would do exceedingly well on YouTube.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've given me a lot of encouragement.
Well, no problem at all. Anything to lift the spirit and give us motivation to move forward is great.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, after the Christmas holiday, I'll even do some video of us getting together and discussing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be honored, and I'd be happy to do the video editing, all that sort of stuff. We do that stuff at Seven Spot for a number of different, I guess, content providers. So it's an honor to do that for you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
One of the questions you asked me online was, I can't remember your exact words, but what have I got out of Low Cost, this book? How do I feel about it?
Yes.
Well, I've got to be perfectly honest.
Yes.
The thing that I'm most pleased and most delighted with is the number of people that it's made happy. I've been to low-cost race meetings, and there will be dozens and dozens of people with their race cars there, and they're all happy to be involved and happy people. I go to
Yes.
kit car shows, and they're all happy. That makes me happy, and
Yeah.
I think if that's the contribution I've made to motoring society, the fact I can bring a little bit of fun and a bit of happiness, that's how I'd like to. That's what I've got out of low cost, honestly.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but as a humble kit car builder, and it was a kit that was fashioned after the low cost ethos by one of those many clone manufacturers that have taken your idea and moved it forward. I thank you. I mean, the inspiration that you have given me to finish it, because quite candidly, I did my project with my children. It was a wonderful experience for us. So it's great.
Yeah.
And I quite frankly, I talk to people all around the world, and you will see there's a lot of people that have received a life focus because of you and your work.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely tremendous to hear. It really
Yeah.
is.
And it's the truth.
Great. Well, I'm just so pleased there are so many people that are getting so much pleasure and
Yeah.
also learning. At the very start of the low cost phenomenon, the number of schools that became involved.
Yes.
In fact, I was invited over to South Africa by the South African Education Authority,
Mm-hmm.
and Mandela had just recently got into power,
Yes.
and he'd promised his people that if they got him into power, he would provide them with jobs, he would provide them with homes, housing, etc. Well, these people, he'd been in a little while, and of course, they were expecting to get the house and get the job, and it doesn't happen that quickly. We know it, but they didn't know it at the time. Well, an English newspaper, the Times, did a 4-page educational supplement,
Mm-hmm.
and the Education Authority over there had seen a copy of this and thought, this is what we ought to be doing, building cars like this. And what will the pupils get out of it? They're not all going to be motor engineers, but they will be. They will be able to be welders. They'll
Mm-hmm.
be able to be paint sprayers. They'll be able to be upholsterers.
Mm-hmm.
They will be able to do basic maintenance like changing clutches and putting new disc pads in and that sort of
Absolutely.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the level, anyway, they sent me over, and it was all paid for. And I spent a month in a school, and I told them the materials I'd want. They got an old car, a Ford Escort,
Mm-hmm.
from a scrapyard again, and
Mm-hmm.
all the steel tube and bits and pieces I wanted. So it was all waiting for me when I got over there. I took 3 or 4 of my pupils whose parents paid for their fares because they thought it would be a good experience.
Yes.
And in 2 weeks, from a standing start, we built a low cost, and neither myself or my pupils got our hands dirty. We were advising, we were showing, we were
Mm-hmm.
teaching, right from the basics, how to use a hacksaw, how to mark out a piece of metal. And in 2 weeks, we had the car up and running on its wheels, and we demonstrated it in front of the Education Authority, all the parents of this particular school, and people came from schools all over South Africa. I don't know if it's still happening, but they went away thinking, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to build car factories, but we will be able to teach these basic skills by allowing youngsters to have this experience.
Wow.
And that was tremendous. And I told you about the Duke of Edinburgh.
I was just about to segue into that, because you mentioned to me that the educational benefit that the kids are getting from getting their hands into it and learning new skills. Please elaborate. Tell that story.
Yeah. Well, the Royal Naval Training Station at Gosport, we're building 2 low costs. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but bless him, the Duke of Edinburgh, a lovely chap, had something going for many, many years called the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And it's open to all young people, and they have to complete a number of tasks. My memory's not so good. I think they're eligible from the age of 16 up to 18, and they have to complete a number of tasks, and they do outward bound type courses. Does outward bound mean anything to you?
Yes, I've heard of it.
It's mountaineering and abseiling and,
yeah.
and living in the wild, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do some community service, which might be helping elderly people or even doing their shopping for them. And the list is quite extensive. And they have to complete these tasks. But one of them was make something, build something. And so many people were writing in to the Duke's office saying, and we're building a low cost. So the Duke of Edinburgh thought, what on earth is a low cost? And told his equerry to go and find out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he did. And he phoned me, and I just thought it was one of my pals having a bit of fun with me. But he phoned me and said, I'm speaking on behalf of the Duke of Edinburgh. He'd like to meet you. Well, he did convince me it was genuine. So arrangements were made for me to go to St. James's Palace, and I met the Duke on a 1-to-1. It was just myself, the Duke, and his equerry. I should have had a meeting that lasted 20 minutes, but as you can see from this video call, I can tend to go on and on and on and on.
That's quite all right with me.
Well, after half an hour, and it was obvious I was getting dry. I needed a drink. So the Duke said, would you like a drink, Mr. Champion? And I said, oh, that's very kind of you. Well, I don't think I'd really engaged my brain. And if a chap says to me, would you like a drink? I generally answer, I'll have a pint of lager, please. And I didn't think of where I was and who I was speaking to. And I said, oh, that'd be lovely. A pint of lager would be splendid. So he turned to his equerry and said, do we keep lager? And the equerry said, I believe we do, sir. So the Duke said, well, yes, well, in that case, I'll have a small sherry. And the equerry goes to a phone, and about 4 minutes later, someone comes in carrying a silver tray with a pint of lager and a sherry. So I had another 20 minutes with the Duke, explaining about low cost and the ethos of it. I was overcome by the whole situation, and I'd been instructed for half an hour before I met him of where to stand. There's a little cross on the floor, where to stand. Don't walk towards him when he comes in. He'll come through that door over there. Don't walk towards him. And keep your hands behind your back, clasp behind your back. And told me how to address him, etc. He also said, never, ever, ever turn your back on the Duke. At the end of your conversation, he will turn round and go out of the same door he came in, and then you're free to go. Well, he thanked me very much and said, we're going to send you an invitation to come up to the award ceremony. And I said, thank you very much, sir, and shook his hand and turned my back on him to walk towards the door I came in, thinking, oh my God, I'm not supposed to do this.
Yes.
But 2 or 3 paces, he said, oh, Mr. Champion. I turned around, I said, yes, sir. He said, I forgot. My wife knew I was meeting you today, and she tells me that 2 of the girls at a school in Havant, where she is the patron, are also building a low cost, and they have
Really?
a few technical difficulties. If you're going down to Gosport, Duke had asked me to go down to Gosport and see the lads in the college there, Havant is on your way back from Gosport, and perhaps you could call in there, which I did. I saw the girls. They'd got no support at all, apart from the school gardener, who could weld and had a MIG welder. And they built this car, and it was a darn good effort. And the only problem they had, and the reason that the Queen wanted me to go in, was getting the braking system sorted out. They couldn't find out how to breed the brakes.
Oh, yes.
And the gardener wasn't that au fait with it either. So I had lunch with these 2 girls and the headmistress, sorted their problem out, and had a wonderful time. This is something else that low cost has given me.
Yes.
The opportunity to meet these people, all sorts of people, from South Africa to the Royal Naval Training College to the Queen's School, and all over. It's just
it's humbling.
It's a wonderful experience.
It's absolutely humbling. Yeah, absolutely amazing story. Those are moments that will live forever. It's fabulous getting that sort of interest, insight about the anecdotes, the stories of how, in a very real way, tangible way, from the very beginning, the low-cost ethos has touched people and made changes in people's lives in the UK and in South Africa. And I can tell you from my work that I do worldwide is I know people in South Africa that are building them. I know people in Argentina, in Chile, in Ecuador, all throughout the United States and Canada, literally around the world, people are now and have been building low costs for years. It is a phenomenon that is still going strong.
And it's created a lot of employment. There are people now that are actually making component parts, from wishbones to whole chassis.
Yes.
And it's creating, I mean, I do appreciate there are some people who want to build a low cost, but will much prefer to have the major components like the chassis and the wishbones.
Yes.
So, I'm quite happy for people to do that. But it's creating work. It's not only giving people fun, and it's creating work. And I don't know if I should touch on this at all, but a lot of the low-cost look-alike manufacturers that came into being, having got a copy of my book and thought, I can start doing this, and they've grown and grown and grown. It's created work for them as well. So I think it's really, in a very, very tiny, small way, helped the British economy as well. The last time we spoke this way with video, you asked me how people who've never done this before can start. Well, I do know that you must not let the book and the whole project daunts you, what you've got to do is start with the smallest component, and that might be the brackets to hold the wishbones and the trailing
Yes.
legs. Build those, put them to one side. Little bits like that will help you develop your welding skills. It might be that as your welding skills develop through the chassis, you go back to them and do it again and think, I could do that better.
Yeah.
But attack it as individual small components, and it will grow. When I was teaching in the school, that's how the pupils did it. I also had a system there of the older pupils would have the younger pupils as trainees.
Yes.
So the young pupils learned from the older pupils whose cars were coming to completion and gained a lot of experience before they started. And it was a cycle that just went on and on. Youngsters built their cars, left the school, but new ones had been seeded. And it is tremendous. Yeah, absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how valuable this conversation that we're having right now has been to me, not only from the point of view of the work I'm doing to kind of create a video on your behalf, but just personally, because just the feeling I have right here from the inspiration of just what you said, taking that first step, because I think I mentioned I built mine from a kit only because I did not feel that I had the welding skills necessary to build a space frame, because my background was completely different from anything to do with trades. But having said that, now that I got into building my kit, there were parts in it that needed welding, and yes, I got into it. And now I'm not an accomplished welder, but my welds stick. They're good.
Good, excellent.
Hello everyone, Chris Hollier from Avon Rescue. Just wanted to say a couple of words about Ron Champion, the man behind the low-cost movement. I had the tremendous pleasure of going to meet Ron earlier on this year and sat down with him for a cup of coffee and talked for a good couple of hours about cars in general, about his excitement and the adventures he's had along the way and the places that the project has taken him. It's a thoroughly lovely chap. I got on really well with him. So hopefully he'll get an idea from all these clips of how many people appreciated what he's done for the industry. And it's not often you get to start a whole genre of a project. And he has, single-handedly. The whole low-cost movement wouldn't be here without Ron's input. So good on you, Ron. And hopefully you'll see from all these clips how much it's meant to everybody else around the world.
Hi Ron, it's Mike from Surrey. Thank you very much for your book. Well, my project is still in early stage, but we're getting there. Obviously, I've done a little bit different, like in your book. Also use a different rear axle, not directly from the Ford Escort. Not the English axle which you have suggested. Some other little modifications. For example, your panhard rod is adjustable with rod ends. Use some Westfield parts, like for example the roll hook came from Westfield. Pedal box comes from the Chris Gibbs book. Yeah, some frequently also to be seen on the 7 spot, and I got also my own blog. Yeah, once again, thank you very much.
Hey Ron, high cost, low cost Dave here. Thanks so much for everything you did getting the community started, writing the book, and getting us all on the path to building our own vehicles.
Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Desde Chile quiero mandarle un gran saludo y agradecimiento a Ron Champion. Gracias, Ron.
To Ron Champion, the father of the low cost. Your book has been an inspiration for many people over the years, including myself. Thank you very much, Ron.
This is a shout out to Ron. Because of his book, people like me have built these sort of cars. So with the inspiration from the book, everybody that's made one of these cars has to thank Ron for helping us along the journey. This is Chris, the plumber, from a small shed in Western Victoria. Cheers.
Hello from Rapid 7 Sports Car Kits in Manila, Philippines. Thank you very much, Ron Champion. Mabuhay.
Good morning, Ron Champion. And thank you so much for the inspiration from your book. It has certainly inspired me to get going on my build that has been a dream for many, many, many years. And your book was the inspiration I needed to get myself going and build my dream. Thank you. From Vancouver, Canada. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Hey Ron, Martin here, a Highlander from the far north of Scotland, now living in Southern California. Just wanted to share a big thank you for your inspiration and allowing me to build these little toys. This is my first low cost, and I'm working on my second one over my shoulder. It's a bit of a longer term project, being all electric. But just wanted to say thank you very much for the inspiration, for the dreams, for the ability to put those dreams into reality. And just a quick story on my first low-cost build. I call it the RP7. The RP stands for Recuperation Project. Some time ago I was suffering quite badly after some surgery, and thinking on it now, I was both physically down and mentally down, and building this car brought me back. And I did challenge myself, being a tight Scotsman. I tried to build the car, cutting the steel tubes with one hacksaw blade. I had to give in about 2/3 of the way through. Ultimately, it required 2 hacksaw blades, but I think I did pretty good. Thanks once again, Ron. All the best.
My name is Al. I'm coming to you from my shop in Victoria, BC. Thank you, Ron Champion, for putting together that book so many years ago. You're responsible for inspiring me to build this 7 here and to spend hours and hours of joy fabricating it. Thank you very much for doing that. You made a big difference in my life and the time that I spent having fun.
Hello from Tools and Track headquarters in Glasgow. Just to say massive thank you, Ron. Even to this day, people are still standing on the shoulders of your giant work, and here is proof example that decades after what you've done, people still use you as inspiration. Thank you.